The first carrot struck the Alpha King directly between the eyes. It bounced from his black fur, landed in the snow, and rolled beneath one enormous paw. For several long seconds, neither the wolf nor the young Omega moved. Elowen Hale remained seated where she had fallen, one hand buried in the snow and the other still holding an overturned basket. Apples, herbs, and pieces of bread were scattered around her like evidence from a very embarrassing crime. The wolf stared at her. He was larger than a warhorse, with thick black fur, silver eyes, and teeth capable of ending her life before she finished apologizing. Elowen swallowed. "I did not throw it at you." The wolf's eyes narrowed. "My basket threw it." That explanation somehow sounded worse. Elowen slowly lifted both hands. "I understand that baskets are rarely charged with assault, but I would like you to consider the circumstances." The great wolf lowered his head toward the carrot. Elowen stopped breathing. Everyone in Blackthorn Keep feared the abandoned Glass Moon Garden. Servants claimed it was haunted by the dead Luna. Guards refused to enter after dark. Even the royal healers had stopped visiting years ago. Elowen had been sent there only because no one important wanted the task. She was supposed to collect the surviving winter sage before the old glass house was sealed forever. She had not expected to find a wolf inside, especially not one with shoulders wider than the doorway of her small room at Briar Row. The beast smelled the carrot, then looked at her again. "You do not have to eat it," she whispered. "I would understand. It has already behaved badly." The wolf's ears moved. Elowen wondered if that was amusement. It was probably hunger or murder. She carefully reached for an apple and placed it on the snow between them. "There. A peace offering." The wolf did not move. Elowen pushed the apple a little closer, then quickly pulled her hand back. "I will stay here. You may decide." She did not command him. She did not reach for his fur. She simply waited, shivering in her worn brown coat while snow drifted through the broken glass ceiling. Behind the ruined wall, Alpha King Caelan Voss studied her in silence. He had entered the garden less than an hour earlier while following a suspicious scent through the Eastern Service tunnels. Someone had been moving royal supplies beneath the fortress after midnight. Caelan had expected smugglers. He had not expected a clumsy Omega carrying vegetables. The young woman showed no sign of recognizing him. Most servants had never seen the king's wolf form, and those who had rarely remained calm enough to study it. She looked at him as though he were not a weapon or a royal beast, only a hungry animal alone in the cold. That unsettled him more than fear would have. Elowen rubbed her hands together. "You are very round." Caelan became perfectly still. She tilted her head. "Not fat." His silver eyes hardened. "Winter-shaped." That was not better. Elowen appeared to realize this. "Powerful," she added quickly. "Very powerful. Broad. Majestic, even." Caelan continued staring. She sighed. "I should have stopped at hungry." He should have left. His investigation mattered more than this strange woman and her insulting vegetables. Then Elowen's gaze dropped toward his front leg. A shallow wound crossed the fur above his paw. It had come from a silver trap near the northern border. The injury was healing, but dried blood still darkened the edges. Her expression changed. The nervous humor disappeared. "You are hurt." Caelan stepped back when she moved. Elowen stopped immediately. "All right." She lowered herself to the ground again. "I will not come closer." No impatience entered her voice. No wounded pride. She removed a small clay bottle from her basket and poured warm water onto a clean cloth. Then she placed both on the snow near the apple. "That is for the wound. You may use it yourself, although I admit I have never seen a wolf apply a bandage." Caelan glanced at the cloth. She smiled faintly. "I would be impressed." Wind moved through the ruined garden. Dead vines tapped against the broken iron frames. Somewhere beneath the snow, water dripped through an old stone channel. Elowen gathered her, scattered herbs, but left the apple, the cloth, and even the rebellious carrot behind. At the doorway, she looked back. The wolf had not touched the food. "That is fine," she said softly. "You do not know me yet." Yet. The word lingered after she disappeared into the service tunnel. Caelan waited until her footsteps faded. Then he approached the apple. It carried no poison, no metal, no strange herbs. Only the faint warmth of her hand and the gentle scent of lavender from her scarf. He bit into it. The sweetness surprised him. So did the quiet relief that followed. Outside the garden, Elowen paused when she heard the apple crack between powerful teeth. A delighted smile spread across her face. "I knew it," she whispered. She hurried toward the kitchen gardens, unaware that two guards had watched everything from the eastern archway. One looked at the other. "Should we report the beast?" The older guard glanced toward the dark window above the courtyard, where High Steward Octavia Rook often observed the workers. He lowered his voice. "Captain Jarek ordered us to ignore anything inside that garden. What if it kills her?" The older man looked away. "Then it becomes one less problem to explain." Neither guard noticed the black wolf standing silently behind the broken glass. But Caelan heard every word. His gaze followed Elowen's small footprints through the snow. Someone in his palace knew a royal beast had entered the forbidden garden. Someone had ordered the guards to remain silent. And the awkward Omega who had just struck a king with a carrot had unknowingly walked into the center of his investigation. Elowen returned before sunrise with 3 carrots, 2 apples, and a private promise not to insult the wolf's body again. The promise lasted less than 5 minutes. She found him beside the ruined fountain, exactly where she had left him. Snow rested along his black back, making him look even larger than before. And somehow rounder. Elowen stopped at the doorway. The wolf lifted his head. "You came back." His ears turned toward her voice. She smiled before she could stop herself. "I did too." Caelan watched her cross the garden with the same uneven steps as yesterday. Her left boot squeaked whenever it touched the stone. The basket on her arm swung dangerously close to every broken pillar she passed. He had spent most of the night beneath the eastern storehouse, searching for the men who had used the hidden tunnel. He had found fresh wool marks, black sealing wax, and the scent of spoiled meat. He had also found nothing strong enough to place before the council. Now he should have been resting. Instead, he was waiting for a woman carrying carrots. Elowen knelt several feet away. "I brought breakfast." Caelan smelled the basket. Apples, bread, fresh herbs. No meat. His wolf became suspicious. Elowen placed a carrot on the snow. "I know what you are thinking." He doubted that. "You are thinking, Elowen, 1 carrot is hardly a proper meal for a creature of my size." Caelan stared at her. "So I brought 3. She arranged them in a neat row. The Alpha King looked at the vegetables with quiet dislike. He had eaten roasted venison less than an hour earlier. He did not need breakfast. He especially did not need orange roots offered by an Omega who believed he was homeless. Elowen waited. Her face held the same hopeful expression she had worn when he accepted the apple. Caelan looked away. She tried to hide her disappointment. "It is all right. Perhaps you do not like carrots." Something unpleasant tightened in his chest. He reached forward and picked up the smallest one. Elowen's entire face brightened. There it was again. That smile. Caelan bit through the carrot. It tasted exactly as disappointing as expected. Elowen moved closer by several inches. "Good?" He chewed slowly. "I will take that as yes." He had won wars with fewer sacrifices. Elowen offered him another. Caelan gave her a long look. "You are very hungry." He was not. "You poor thing." He ate the second carrot. By the third, he had begun to understand that kindness could be used as a weapon. Elowen set down the apples and reached for the clay bottle she had left the day before. The cloth beside it had been moved. Her eyes dropped to the wound above his paw. It looked cleaner. "You used it." Caelan did not answer. She smiled softly. "I knew you were clever." He was the ruler of 12 packs. Being praised for understanding warm water felt strangely pleasant. Elowen lifted a fresh cloth, but did not approach. "May I?" Caelan's muscles tightened. Royal healers had touched him only with permission, ceremony, and the scent of fear hidden beneath expensive oils. Elowen simply waited. She did not reach farther. She left the choice with him. Slowly, Caelan extended his injured paw. Her breath caught. "Thank you." She touched him carefully. Her hands were cold, but her movements were gentle. She cleaned the dried blood without pulling the fur. When he flinched, she stopped at once. "I know," she whispered. "I am sorry." No one had apologized to him for pain in years. People expected an Alpha King to endure it silently. Elowen treated the wound as if it mattered. Caelan lowered his head and watched her. A curl had escaped beneath her cap. Dirt marked one cheek. Her lips moved while she worked. "Clean the wound. Do not lose a finger. Try not to offend him before breakfast." Caelan's ears moved. Elowen glanced up. "You heard nothing." He had heard everything. A sound came from behind one of the frost-covered pillars. Caelan smelled Ronan before the royal beta stepped into view. Ronan Ash had served beside him for nearly 20 years and was one of the few men capable of laughing at the king without immediately preparing a will. He now stood perfectly still, staring at Elowen's hand around Caelan's paw. Then he looked at the row of carrot tops in the snow. His expression changed. Caelan gave him a warning stare. Ronan looked toward the ceiling, but his shoulders moved suspiciously. Elowen followed Caelan's gaze. Is someone there? A piece of ice fell from the pillar. Ronan remained hidden. Caelan growled. The beta took the warning seriously and retreated through the eastern passage. Elowen frowned. You do not like visitors? Caelan rested his paw back on the ground. That is sensible. Most people are exhausting. She packed away the cloth. I should go before May notices I am missing. Caelan's wolf disliked the words before he understood why. Elowen stood and brushed snow from her skirt. I will return tomorrow. The tension inside him eased. She picked up the empty basket, took 2 steps, then turned. Oh, I almost forgot. Elowen pulled out a small bundle of lettuce. Caelan stared at it. For variety, she placed it beside him and left with a cheerful wave. The moment the door closed, Caelan pushed the lettuce behind the fountain. Ronan emerged from the tunnel. The royal beta looked at the hidden vegetables. Then at his king. I have several questions. Caelan rose. You will ask none of them. Does she know wolves eat meat? Caelan walked past him. Ronan followed. Does she believe the king of Thornmere survives on carrots? Caelan's growl deepened. Ronan smiled. I understand. A classified investigation. Near the tunnel entrance, Caelan stopped. Black wax marked the edge of Ronan's boot. The same wax he had smelled beneath the storehouse. Ronan noticed his gaze. This was not here when I entered. Both men looked back toward the ruined fountain. A thin black line had appeared beneath the fresh snow, leading from the garden wall toward the place where Elowen had been kneeling. Someone had entered while she cared for him, and whoever it was had stood close enough to watch. By the 3rd morning, Elowen had decided the wolf needed a name. She entered carrying apples, parsley, and a carefully folded blanket. The enormous black wolf waited beside the fountain. He had moved the lettuce. Elowen noticed immediately. Yesterday, she had left it beside his paws. Now, it was hidden behind a cracked stone planter, with only one green leaf sticking out. She looked at the wolf. He looked at her. You buried your breakfast. Caelan lowered his head. Elowen pulled out the untouched bundle. You could have simply refused it. His silver eyes followed her. I would not have been offended. That was not entirely true. She would have been a little offended. Elowen placed the lettuce back inside her basket. Fine, no lettuce. Caelan's ears lifted. But you still need something green. They lowered again. She spread the blanket across the cold stone. You are very difficult for someone who does not pay rent. Caelan stepped onto it and lowered himself with careful dignity. The morning light revealed him more clearly. His fur was thick enough to hide most of his shape, but the swelling around his ribs looked wrong. It was not the comfortable roundness of a well-fed animal. His breathing remained too shallow. His movements were slower in the morning. And beneath the scent of cedar and snow, Elowen noticed something faintly bitter. She moved closer. May I check something? After a pause, Caelan rolled slightly onto one side. Elowen blinked. That is an alarming amount of trust. He gave her a look. All right, I will be respectful. She placed one palm against the thick fur near his ribs. Warmth spread beneath her fingers. So did a strange awareness she could not explain. Caelan felt it too. His wolf went perfectly still. The bond between them had been no more than a quiet pull before. Now it stirred like a thread drawn tight beneath his skin. Elowen pressed gently. The tissue beneath his fur felt swollen. Not fat, not muscle, inflammation. Her smile faded. You are not chubby. Caelan's eyes narrowed as though the correction had arrived too late. Well, you are a little chubby. His tail struck the blanket once. But that is not the problem. She leaned closer and carefully smelled the fur near his shoulder. The bitter scent was stronger there. Elowen knew it. Her mother had once used a diluted form of moonbane to keep wild pests away from winter stores. In small amounts, it caused dizziness and swelling. In larger doses, it could weaken a wolf's heart. Elowen's hands became cold. What have they been feeding you? Caelan looked toward the service tunnel. She followed his gaze. The palace? He did not move. Elowen sat back on her heels. Pieces began fitting together in ways she did not like. The abandoned garden. The guards who never entered. The wound near his paw. The black wax beneath one of the stone benches. Someone knew he was here. Someone wanted him weak. You did not come here because you were abandoned, she whispered. You came here because you were hiding. Caelan lifted his head. Elowen expected fear to rise inside her. Instead, she felt sadness. Whatever this wolf truly was, he had chosen a ruined garden over the safety of the palace. That meant the palace did not feel safe. She reached into her basket and removed an apple. No more food from the royal kitchens. Caelan looked at it. This came from my own tree. He smelled the fruit before accepting it. Elowen watched him eat. You may pretend to dislike my vegetables, but they have not poisoned you. Caelan swallowed. She pointed at him, and I saw where you hid the parsley. His ears moved backward. You are not subtle. The Alpha King had successfully crossed enemy camps without leaving tracks. He found the accusation deeply unfair. Elowen opened a small pouch and mixed crushed milk thistle with warm water. This may help with the swelling. She placed the bowl near him. Caelan smelled it, then turned his head away. It tastes terrible. He looked at her. I know. He continued, refusing. Elowen folded her arms. I have been very patient. Caelan remained still. I brought you a blanket. No response. I defended your body shape. His eyes moved toward her. Mostly. Caelan looked away again. Elowen sighed and dipped one finger into the mixture. She tasted it, immediately regretted the decision, and made a face. The wolf watched with clear interest. That is awful. His mouth opened slightly. Elowen pointed at him. Do not laugh. Something warm moved through his silver eyes. She pushed the bowl closer. If I survived it, so can you. He drank. Only a little. Elowen smiled as though he had performed a miracle. Good boy. Caelan nearly stopped breathing. No one in Thornmere had ever called the Alpha King a good boy. From the service tunnel, Ronan quietly covered his mouth. Caelan's gaze snapped toward the shadows. Ronan disappeared before the growl began. Elowen scratched beneath the wolf's chin. You need a name. Caelan became suspicious. Something dignified. He relaxed slightly. Shadow? His expression remained unchanged. Midnight? Nothing. Elowen studied his broad body, thick winter coat, and offended silver eyes. A slow smile appeared. Chubby. Caelan stood at once. Oh, come back. He walked toward the broken wall. It is affectionate. He continued walking. Chubby. He stopped. Elowen laughed and hurried after him, nearly tripping over the blanket. Caelan turned quickly enough to catch her coat between his teeth before she fell. For one quiet moment, she leaned against his shoulder. Her laughter softened. You see, she whispered. You pretend not to care, but you always stay. The words reached somewhere Caelan had kept closed for years. Elowen rested her hand against his neck. No one deserves to be left alone just because saving them is difficult. The bond between them pulsed. Warm. Certain. Caelan lowered his head until his forehead touched hers. Elowen froze. Neither fully understood what had awakened. But beyond the ruined wall, someone watching from the eastern archway did. Before sunrise ended, High Steward Octavia Rook learned that the Alpha King's wolf had chosen an Omega. By noon, everyone in Blackthorn Keep had heard that an enormous black wolf lived inside the Forbidden Garden. By sunset, the story had become less accurate. Laundry servants claimed the beast had silver horns. A young guard insisted it could disappear through stone. Someone in the western kitchen swore it had eaten an entire vegetable wagon, including the wheels. Elowen heard the last version while washing dirt from her hands. That is ridiculous, she said. The kitchen boy beside her glanced around before whispering, which part? He would never eat the wheels. Elowen lifted a basket of herbs and carried them toward the lower kitchen. What she did not know was that Caelan had already followed her. He remained in human form, wearing a plain dark coat without the royal clasp. Ronan walked behind him, looking entirely too pleased. You could simply summon her, Ronan said. Caelan watched Elowen disappear through the servants' passage. She behaves differently around the king. You are the king. That is the problem. Ronan considered this. So you prefer being chubby. Caelan stopped walking. Ronan immediately examined a crack in the wall. A fascinating fortress, he murmured. The servants' corridors were narrower than the royal halls. The ceilings were low, the stones damp, and the small fires barely warmed the rooms. Caelan had lived inside Blackthorn Keep his entire life. He had never walked through this passage. That realization stayed with him. Workers moved aside when they noticed him. Though few recognized the king without royal clothing, they lowered their voices and kept their eyes on the floor. Not respect, Caelan thought. Habit. Fear. Elowen entered the lower kitchen and placed her basket beside the preparation table. A thin boy named Toby stood near the ovens, trying to hide a torn sleeve. Flour covered his face. One cheek carried the red outline of a hand. Elowen noticed immediately. What happened? Toby looked toward Captain Jarek, who stood near the supply door speaking with two guards. I dropped a ledger. That did not cause the mark on your face. The boy's eyes lowered. Elowen's expression changed. Her softness remained, but something steadier appeared beneath it. She walked toward Jarek. Caelan stopped in the shadow of the doorway. The captain looked down at her. Is there a problem? You struck him. He lost a royal record. He is 12. He is careless. Elowen glanced at the ledger resting beneath Jarek's arm. Black wax marked its edge. The same wax Caelan had found in the garden. Elowen saw it too. She did not starry. Instead, she said, then punish the person responsible for teaching him. Jarek's face hardened. Mind your place, Omega. Elowen's fingers tightened around her apron. Caelan heard her heartbeat quicken. She was afraid. Still, she did not move away. My place is wherever someone smaller is being hurt. The kitchen became silent. Jarek stepped closer. You believe feeding one wild animal has made you important? Elowen's face lost color. He knew about Chubby. Before she could answer, Caelan walked into the room. Every servant froze. Jarek turned. Recognition struck him first. My king. The captain bowed. Caelan did not acknowledge it. His gaze rested on Toby's bruised cheek. Who struck the boy? No one answered. Elowen looked at Jarek. Jarek looked at the floor. Caelan's voice remained calm. That made it more dangerous. I asked a question. Jarek straightened. The boy misplaced the supply ledger. Discipline was necessary. Caelan held out one hand. Give it to me. The captain hesitated, then surrendered the book. Caelan opened it. Several pages had been removed. Others listed deliveries of cabbage, grain, and winter herbs in quantities far greater than the kitchens had received. He ran one thumb over the black wax. Fresh. Why was this ledger in your possession? Jarek's pause lasted only a heartbeat. High Steward Octavia requested an inspection. A reasonable answer. Too reasonable. Caelan closed the book. Ronan. The royal beta entered. Take the ledger. Jarek lifted his eyes. My king, the High Steward, may request it from me. Ronan accepted the book. Caelan looked toward Toby. You will not be punished for losing something Captain Jarek was already carrying. The boy's lips parted. Yes, your majesty. Caelan turned to Jarek. If you strike another child inside my home, you will learn the difference between discipline and cruelty. The captain bowed, but anger flashed behind his lowered eyes. He left through the supply door. Elowen watched him go. Then she realized Caelan was looking at her. Her hands became suddenly busy arranging herbs that did not need arranging. You seem to find trouble often, he said. I was delivering rosemary. Dangerous work. It can be surprisingly political. A faint warmth touched Caelan's eyes. Elowen noticed again how much they resembled Chubby's. You defended the boy, he said. No one else did. You were afraid. Yes. And still you spoke. Elowen looked toward Toby. Fear does not make silence right. The mate bond stirred between them, quiet but unmistakable. Elowen felt it and stepped back. A jar behind her elbow fell from the table. Caelan caught it before it struck the floor. Their hands closed around the glass at the same time. Elowen looked up. Your reflexes are very good. So I have been told. You remind me of someone. Caelan's fingers tightened slightly around the jar. Ronan turned away to hide a smile. Before Elowen could say more, a crash sounded beyond the supply door. They rushed outside. Captain Jarek had disappeared. So had the wagon waiting beside the eastern wall. Only one thing remained in the snow. A trail of black wax leading toward the forbidden garden. Beside it lay a cabbage split neatly down the middle. Elowen reached it first. Its pale leaves were scattered across the snow. The center had been cut too cleanly to be accidental, and a thin layer of clear wax clung to the torn edges. Caelan caught her wrist before she touched it. "Do not." Elowen looked at his hand around hers. Then at him. "You knew it was dangerous." "I suspected." "That is not the same as explaining." "No." His grip loosened, but he did not step away. Ronan crouched beside the cabbage and used the tip of his dagger to separate the leaves. Something dark glimmered inside the hollow core. A black glass capsule rolled onto the snow. Elowen's stomach tightened. It was no larger than her smallest finger, sealed with wax and stamped with a tiny royal wolf. Ronan's expression hardened. "That seal is used only for medicine carried into the royal chambers." Caelan looked toward the wagon tracks disappearing beyond the eastern wall. Then Captain Jarek did not leave this by mistake. Elowen stared at the capsule. This cabbage came from the same delivery as the ones in the lower kitchen. "How do you know?" Caelan asked. "The stems. They were cut with a hooked harvest knife. May uses a straight blade. These came from outside the palace gardens." Ronan examined the base. "She is right." Elowen looked at Caelan. "You seem surprised." "I am reconsidering several assumptions." "About cabbages?" "About you." Heat rose into her cheeks. Before she could answer, High Steward Octavia approached with 6 guards. At 52, she wore her gray hair beneath a black jeweled net. Her clothing never wrinkled. Her voice never rose. She made cruelty sound like responsible administration. She stopped beside the ruined vegetable. "What happened?" Caelan studied her face. "A question I was about to ask you." Octavia's gaze moved to the capsule. For one brief moment, her fingers tightened around her gloves. Then the reaction disappeared. "The royal seal," she said quietly. "Someone has stolen it." Ronan looked at Caelan. Octavia had identified the mark from several steps away. Too quickly. Elowen noticed that too. The High Steward turned toward her. "Where did you find this cabbage?" "Here." "That is not what I asked." Elowen hesitated. Octavia's voice softened. "Did you bring it into the garden?" "No." "Have you brought cabbages here before?" Caelan's jaw tightened. Elowen glanced toward him. "Many. Far too many." "That has nothing to do with this," she said. Octavia looked at the green leaves scattered around the garden. "It appears to have everything to do with this." Caelan stepped between them. "She will not be questioned in the snow like a criminal." Octavia lowered her head. "Of course, Your Majesty." Her tone remained respectful. Her eyes did not. A guard near the archway suddenly whistled. Another answered from the northern wall. Caelan's wolf stirred beneath his skin. The signal was wrong. Royal guards used 3 short notes for danger. This was 2. A private warning. A crossbow string snapped above them. Caelan heard it first. He turned toward Elowen. The bolt flew from the ruined tower. He struck her to the ground and covered her with his body. The arrow shattered against the stone where her head had been. Screams broke through the courtyard. Guards drew weapons. Octavia stepped back. Caelan lifted his face. Silver burned through his eyes. "Stay down." Elowen stared up at him. "You are heavy." For one impossible second, Caelan almost laughed. Another bolt struck the fountain. Then, the king was moving. His body changed before he reached the tower. Dark clothing tore into black fur. His hands became enormous paws. The Alpha King's wolf crossed the garden faster than any ordinary creature could run. Several guards stumbled away from him. Elowen pushed herself upright. She had seen Chubby, sleepy, offended, and pretending to enjoy carrots. She had never seen him hunt. He struck the tower door hard enough to break the hinges. A masked attacker jumped from the lower window and landed in the snow. The man ran toward the service tunnel. Caelan caught him before he reached it. The attacker turned with a silver knife. Caelan knocked the weapon aside and pinned him beneath one paw. The man froze. The wolf's teeth hovered inches from his throat. Elowen rose slowly. "Do not kill him." Every head turned toward her. Caelan's growl rolled across the garden. "He knows who sent him," she said. "We need him alive." The attacker laughed beneath the wolf's paw. "You think he listens to you?" Elowen looked at Caelan. She remembered the apple, the blanket, the terrible medicine, the cabbages he had buried because he had not wanted to hurt her feelings. Chubby. The entire courtyard went silent. Caelan's ears moved backward. Ronan closed his eyes. Elowen approached one cautious step at a time. Please. The great wolf stared at her. Then, slowly, he lifted his paw from the attacker's chest. The guards rushed forward and seized the man. Whispers spread through the courtyard. The royal beast had listened to an omega, not an alpha command, not a chain. Here. Octavia's face became very still. Elowen reached Caelan and touched the fur near his shoulder. You saved me. He lowered his head toward her. Then the captured attacker began choking. Ronan forced the man's mouth open, but it was too late. The assassin collapsed in the snow. A crushed poison capsule lay beneath his tongue. Ronan searched the dead man's coat and removed a strip of black wax bearing the royal wolf seal. The same seal as the capsule inside the cabbage. Elowen looked toward Octavia. The High Steward had already begun walking away. Caelan noticed. Stop her. Every guard froze. Octavia turned slowly. Before anyone could move, a kitchen servant ran through the archway, breathless and pale. My king, he gasped. The vegetable stores have been emptied. Caelan's eyes narrowed. By whose order? The servant swallowed. Lady Octavius. All attention shifted toward the High Steward. Octavia smiled faintly. Then smoke rose behind the eastern wall. The storehouse was already burning. Flames climbed above the wall before anyone reached it. Black smoke rolled across the courtyard. Servants ran carrying buckets while frightened horses kicked against their stalls. The winter wind pushed sparks toward the kitchen roof. Caelan looked at Octavia. You ordered the stores emptied. I ordered the vegetables moved after poison was discovered inside one of them. I was protecting the palace. And the fire? I did not order that. Her answer came too quickly, but it was possible. That was what made Octavia dangerous. She never built a lie, without leaving enough truth around it to survive. Caelan turned to Ronan. Keep her here. Octavia's mouth tightened. My king, surely you do not believe. I believe a royal storehouse is burning while evidence connected to your office disappears. His voice remained calm. No one leaves this courtyard. Caelan moved toward the flames. Elowen followed. He heard her footsteps and stopped. Stay with Ronan. No. Elowen. My records are inside that building. He looked at her. She pointed toward the smoke. Harvest marks, delivery dates, maize inventory. If they burn, we cannot prove which farm sent the poisoned cabbage. The building may collapse. Yes. You say that as though it strengthens your argument. It explains why we should hurry. Caelan stared at her soot-streaked face. She was afraid. He could smell it. She was also already moving around him. He caught her around the waist and lifted her from the ground. Elowen gasped. What are you doing? Preventing you from entering a burning building. Put me down. No. You cannot carry people whenever they disagree with you. I'm discovering that I can. He placed her beside Ronan. Elowen glared at him. This is royal abuse. It is temporary. Then Caelan entered the smoke. The storehouse doors had been chained from the outside. He tore the chain free and disappeared through the flames. Elowen stood rigid beside Ronan. Every sound from inside tightened the invisible bond beneath her ribs. A falling beam crashed. She flinched. He will come out, Ronan said. You do not know that. I have watched him walk through worse. That does not make this less foolish. Ronan glanced at her. You are worried about him. Elowen folded her arms. He saved my life. You called him Chubby before the entire royal guard. Her face warmed despite the fire. I did not know what else to call him. Your Majesty is popular. He was busy. Ronan almost smiled. A section of the roof collapsed. Elowen stopped breathing. Then Caelan emerged through the smoke, carrying Toby beneath one arm and a heavy ledger beneath the other. His coat was burning near the shoulder. Elowen ran toward him. She took the boy first, passing him to a servant. Then, she struck Caelan's shoulder with both hands until the flame disappeared. You are on fire. I noticed. You could have died. I did not. That is not an apology. I was not apologizing. Elowen stared at him, furious and frightened. Caelan's expression softened. I am all right. She touched the side of his face, checking for burns before remembering who he was. Her hand stopped. He noticed the hesitation. The warmth between them changed. Only that morning, she had scratched beneath his chin and accused him of hiding parsley. Now guards surrounded them with lowered heads. Every person waited for his command. Elowen slowly withdrew her hand. Caelan missed it immediately. Ronan opened the ledger. Several pages had been ripped out, but a list remained near the back. Vegetable deliveries, he said. Eastern Gate, every third night. Elowen leaned closer. Beside each delivery was a black circle. The wax mark, she whispered. Octavia approached under guard. That symbol records inspected shipments. Elowen examined the dates. No, these deliveries arrived on nights when the Eastern inspectors were absent. Octavia looked at her. You are a gardener, not a royal auditor. No, Elowen said, but I know when cabbages are harvested. She pointed to the first entry. This shipment is listed as winter cabbage in early autumn. Those plants would not have formed heads yet. Her finger moved lower. And this one claims 200 cabbages came from the southern fields during a month when those fields were flooded. Ronan's face hardened. The records were invented, or used to hide something heavier than vegetables, Caelan said. Octavia remained composed. Then Captain Jarek falsified the entries. Every gaze shifted toward the captain. Jarek had disappeared. 2 guards ran toward the eastern gate. Caelan opened the ledger again. A narrow piece of paper fell from its binding. Elowen picked it up. The note carried only one sentence. When the wolf accepts the omega, begin the final dose. No signature appeared beneath it. Only a small drawing of a raven. Octavia Rook's family symbol. The High Steward's face finally lost color. Caelan turned toward her. What final dose? Before she could answer, a terrible howl rose from the royal kennels. Another followed. Then another. The sound was not anger. It was pain. Ronan looked toward the northern yard. The sentinel wolves. Caelan's hand closed around the note. Octavia smiled for the first time. You spent so much time protecting your omega, she said softly, that you forgot the rest of your pack. Elowen looked at Caelan. His silver eyes had already begun to burn. The poison cabbage had never been meant to kill only the king. It had been a warning. While everyone watched the storehouse burn, someone had fed the final dose to every royal wolf in Thornmere. The first sentinel collapsed before Elowen reached the kennels. Its white body struck the frozen ground, legs trembling beneath poisoned muscles. Around it, more than 20 royal wolves paced inside their enclosures, whining, snapping at the air, and pressing against the iron gates. The guards stood several yards away. None dared enter. They will tear apart anyone who approaches, one warned. Elowen dropped her basket beside the gate. They are frightened. They are royal war beasts. They can be both. Caelan reached her as she removed her coat. You are not going inside. Elowen looked through the bars. The smallest wolf had begun coughing dark foam onto the straw. Then someone else must. No one moved. She turned toward the soldiers. Their eyes lowered. Caelan understood before she spoke again. Everyone had been trained to command the wolves. No one had learned how to comfort them. Elowen reached for the gate. Caelan caught her hand. They are poisoned. They may not recognize you. They recognized pain before they ever recognized rank. His jaw tightened. The bond carried her fear directly into his chest. She was terrified. She was going anyway. Caelan opened the gate himself. I am coming with you. Elowen glanced at his burned coat. You have already entered one dangerous place today, and you have already ignored one royal order. That was not an order. That was an unreasonable suggestion. Despite the howls surrounding them, Ronan covered a brief smile. Caelan entered beside her. The largest sentinel lunged. Soldiers raised their spears. Elowen lifted one empty hand. Easy. The wolf stopped only a few feet away, teeth exposed. Elowen did not command it to kneel. She did not reach for its head. She slowly sat in the poisoned straw. You do not have to trust me yet. Caelan recognized the words. They were almost the same ones she had spoken to him beside the broken fountain. The sentinel's growl weakened. Elowen placed a bowl of clean water between them and moved her hand away. The wolf smelled it, then drank. One by one, the others began watching her. Bring milk thistle, Elowen told the kennel servants. Charcoal, clean water, nothing from the royal medical stores. A guard hesitated. The royal healers should decide. The royal healers failed to notice 20 poisoned wolves. Caelan's voice turned cold. Bring her what she asks for. For the next 2 hours, Elowen moved between the animals. She washed dark foam from their mouths. She cooled their fevered bodies with wet cloth. When one wolf snapped at her sleeve, Caelan's growl shook the kennel. Elowen looked over her shoulder. Do not frighten him. He attempted to bite you. He feels terrible. That does not improve my opinion of him. Elowen almost smiled. Even in human form, the king appeared ready to personally argue with every sick wolf in the room. The remedies began working before sunset. The coughing slowed. The smallest sentinel lifted its head and rested its muzzle across Elowen's knee. Caelan stood several steps away, watching her fingers move through its fur. A strange ache entered him. He had known victory on battlefields. This felt different, quieter. More important, the wolves trusted her because she stayed close when they were frightened. He wondered whether he had begun trusting her for the same reason. Ronan entered carrying a folded document. His expression destroyed the brief peace. The council has invoked an emergency hearing. Caelan rose. On whose authority? Octavia's allies claimed the poison appeared only after Elowen began feeding the royal wolf. Elowen's hand stopped against the sentinel's fur. Ronan continued reluctantly. They say she used the garden to gain access to the pack. They are demanding that she answer before the full council. Caelan's eyes turned silver. She just saved them. That will be presented as proof that she understood the poison. Elowen looked toward the recovering wolves. The trap was simple. If they died, she had poisoned them. If they lived, she had prepared the cure. Octavia had designed a lie that could use either ending. The council chamber was filled before nightfall. Nobles lined the black stone walls. Guards stood beside every door. Octavia waited near the throne, no longer physically restrained. 3 council elders had ruled that holding the high steward without a formal charge violated royal law. She wore gray instead of black. The color made her appear almost innocent. Elowen entered beside Ronan. Whispers followed her. Cursed, ambitious, unworthy. The Garden Omega, who had enchanted the king. Caelan walked several steps behind her. He wanted to stand between Elowen and every voice in the room. Instead, he allowed her to walk on her own. Protection did not mean taking away her strength. Octavia raised the black capsule. This was found in food carried by the accused. It was placed in my basket, Elowen said. By a missing captain who cannot confirm your story? Captain Jarek selected the cabbage. According to you. Octavia placed a second object on the council table. A folded delivery schedule. My guards found this inside Elowen Hale's room. Ronan opened it. The page listed every poison shipment. At the bottom appeared Elowen's name. Her face went pale. I have never seen that. Octavia looked toward the council. She knew where the king was hiding. She fed him privately. She alone understood the poison. Now the royal wolves answered to her. A murmur spread through the hall. Octavia turned toward Caelan. Your Majesty, if you protect her without judgment, the council will have no choice but to invoke the broken fang clause. Caelan's hands tightened. The ancient law could remove him from command if he placed a mate above the safety of the kingdom. Elowen looked at him. For the first time, she understood the choice Octavia was forcing upon him. Defend her and risk his throne. Abandon her and prove that every gentle moment between them had meant nothing. Caelan stepped down from the throne. He did not stand in front of Elowen. He stood beside her. She will receive a trial, he said, but so will everyone who handled that cabbage. Octavia smiled faintly. Then Elowen looked at the false schedule again. A small smear of black wax marked its corner. She lifted the page toward the firelight. This document was written today. The council fell silent. Octavia's smile disappeared. Elowen pointed to the ink. And whoever forged it made one mistake. Beneath her name was a royal date seal. It belonged to a month that had not yet begun. The false date did not prove Elowen innocent, but it proved someone inside the palace had been careless. Ronan held the forged schedule beneath the light. The royal seal showed the first day of Frostwane. Frostwane would not begin for another 12 nights. A low murmur moved through the chamber. Octavia remained still. A clerical error, she said. Elowen looked at her. On a document supposedly hidden in my room weeks ago? Perhaps you prepared several versions. With a royal seal I cannot access? You had access to the king. The accusation struck harder than Elowen expected. Several nobles turned toward Caelan. Everyone understood what Octavia was suggesting. The lowborn Omega had not stolen a seal. She had stolen the king's judgment. Caelan's voice cut through the whispers. The seal is kept in the High Steward's registry. Octavia faced him, and the registry is used by 30 clerks. Then all 30 will be questioned. A council elder rose. Until the matter is settled, the Omega must remain confined. Caelan's expression darkened. Elowen touched his sleeve before he could answer. Only for a second, only enough to remind him that she was still standing. I will remain under Ronan's guard, she said, but the trial cannot continue until every supply record is examined. Octavia studied her carefully. For the first time, Elowen saw something beneath the woman's control. Not anger. Fear. The High Steward was no longer trying to win the trial. She was trying to prevent them from finding something else. That night, Elowen sat beside the window in her guarded room, replaying every word. The poison shipments, the false schedule, the royal seal, and the note found inside the burned ledger. When the wolf accepts the Omega, begin the final dose. The sentence had not been written for Jarek alone. It had been written for someone who already knew Caelan's wolf would recognize a mate. Someone familiar with the royal bloodline. Someone who had studied an older case. Elowen stood so quickly that her chair fell backward. Ronan opened the door. What happened? Luna Althea. His expression changed. Elowen moved toward him. The poison did not begin with Caelan. Octavia already knew how Moonbane affected a royal wolf. She learned it from Althea. Ronan lowered his voice. The late Luna died of winter fever. That is what the royal healers reported. Silence passed between them. Caelan arrived minutes later. He wore no formal coat, only a dark shirt and sword belt. His face remained unreadable until Elowen spoke Althea's name. Pain moved through the bond between them. Quiet. Old. Still alive. The garden was hers, Elowen said gently. If she suspected the Supply Council, she may have hidden records where Octavia believed grief would keep you from searching. Caelan looked toward the eastern windows. For 4 years, he had avoided the glass moon garden because every corner reminded him of what he had lost. Octavia had counted on that. I should have returned sooner, he said. Elowen stepped closer. You are returning now. Before midnight, Caelan, Elowen, and Ronan entered the garden through the irrigation tunnel. Moonlight shone through the broken roof. Dead vines cast narrow shadows across the walls. Snow had buried the place where Elowen first offered Caelan an apple. He paused beside the fountain. Elowen noticed. That was where you decided to deceive me. I was investigating. You ate 3 carrots. Under pressure. You could have walked away. Caelan glanced at her. You looked disappointed. Elowen's mouth softened. Ronan moved ahead. I will search somewhere far from this conversation. They examined Althea's planting tables, old medicine cabinets, and the stone channels beneath the fountain. Nothing remained. Then Elowen noticed a row of carved flowers along the inner wall. Every flower faced upward except one. A small stone lavender leaned toward the floor. She pressed it. A hidden drawer opened beneath the planting table. Inside rested a leather journal wrapped in faded blue cloth. Caelan recognized it immediately. Althea's. His hands became unsteady as he opened the cover. The final pages contained lists of missing food, false medical reports, and payments authorized by Octavia Rook. Then, Caelan reached the last entry. My tonic tastes of Moonbane. Varen will not meet my eyes. If Caelan reads this, tell him my death was not his failure. He stopped reading. Elowen took his hand. Caelan held on as though the garden had shifted beneath him. Ronan examined the remaining pages. This is enough to reopen Althea's death. A metallic sound came from the roof. Elowen looked up. Oil began dripping through the broken glass. The eastern door slammed shut. A torch struck the dead vines outside. Fire raced across the wall. They followed us, Ronan said. Smoke filled the garden almost instantly. Caelan pushed the journal beneath his shirt. Back to the tunnel. They ran toward the fountain. A burning beam crashed between them. Caelan and Ronan reached one side. Elowen was thrown backward onto the other. Elowen. She tried to rise, but a fallen iron frame had trapped her skirt and pinned one leg beneath it. Flames climbed the walls around her. Caelan moved toward the fire. Ronan caught his arm. The roof is falling. Caelan's eyes burned silver. On the other side of the flames, Elowen pulled helplessly against the iron. Then the glass ceiling broke. Hundreds of burning shards fell through the smoke. Elowen covered her face. A black shadow crossed the flames. Caelan shifted in midair. His enormous wolf struck the ground over her, shielding her body beneath his own as glass shattered across his back. Elowen heard his growl. Not anger. Pain. Caelan. He remained above her until the last pieces stopped falling. Smoke curled through his dark fur. Thin lines of blood appeared where the glass had cut him. Ronan shouted from the other side. The tunnel is collapsing. Caelan lowered his head and caught the iron frame between his teeth. His paws dug into the burning soil as he pulled. The metal moved only an inch. Elowen's trapped legs screamed with pain. Leave me. Caelan's silver eyes snapped toward her. She had seen that expression before. It was the same look he gave Cabbage. Deeply offended. This is not the time to argue, she coughed. He growled again and pulled harder. The iron frame bent. Elowen dragged her leg free just as another beam fell behind them. Caelan lowered his body. She understood. You want me to climb onto you? His ears flattened impatiently. This feels undignified. The fire rushed closer. Elowen climbed onto his back. Caelan leaped through the flames. For one terrible second, heat surrounded them. Elowen buried her face in his fur and held tightly around his neck. Then they crashed through the doorway into the snow. Cold air struck her lungs. Servants and guards rushed forward. Caelan lowered himself until Elowen could slide from his back. Her injured leg gave way. He shifted before she reached the ground and caught her against his chest. You came back, she whispered. His face was streaked with ash. Blood ran from one shoulder. There was never a world in which I left you there. Elowen stared at him. The bond between them opened wider. She felt his fear, not the controlled concern of a king. Raw terror. The moment he had seen the ceiling above her, he had believed he was about to lose her. Elowen lifted one shaking hand and touched his cheek. Caelan closed his eyes. You are bleeding, she said. So are you. Yes, but I complain more attractively. His eyes opened. For the first time since the fire began, a tired smile touched his mouth. That is debatable. Elowen almost laughed. Ronan stumbled from the irrigation tunnel with Althea's journal beneath his coat. Workers followed him carrying boxes, seed records, and smoke-darkened bundles of paper. Maybelle stood at the edge of the burning garden, directing servants into lines. Water on the western wall. Save the medicine beds first. Nobles watched from beneath the safety of the stone archway. The workers did not wait for orders. Gardeners carried buckets. Kitchen servants dragged wet blankets across the flames. Stable boys broke frozen water barrels open with hammers. Toby crawled beneath a fallen table and rescued a wooden chest of Althea's records. Caelan watched them fight for a place the council had abandoned years ago. They were saving more than a garden. They were saving evidence. Memory. Truth. A guard caught a cloaked figure trying to escape through the eastern gate. The prisoner fought until Ronan tore away his hood. Captain Jarek stared back at them. Oil stained his gloves. Ronan found Octavia's black seal inside his coat. Yarek laughed bitterly. You think this changes anything? The council already believes the Omega bewitched him. Caelan handed Elowen to make carefully. Then, he approached the captain. Jarek lifted his chin. Kill me, then. Show them what grief has made of you. Caelan's hands tightened. Elowen felt his rage through the bond. She also felt the moment he chose not to obey it. No, Caelan said. You will speak before the kingdom. Jarek's confidence flickered. You will name every person who helped poison my wolves. You will explain who murdered Althea, and you will live long enough to hear the judgment. By dawn, the fire was finally under control. The glass moon garden had lost half its roof, but the stone walls remained standing. Beneath blackened snow, several beds of winter herbs had survived. So had Althea's journal. Servants gathered in the courtyard, exhausted and covered in ash. The council arrived only after the danger had passed. Caelan looked at the people who had entered the flames while nobles watched from a distance. Then he stepped onto the broken fountain. For years, his subjects had heard him announce victories and laws. They had never heard their king apologize. I protected Thornmere's borders, he said, but I failed to see what was happening inside my own walls. The courtyard became still. I trusted reports instead of people. I allowed fear to become silence. I left this garden, and those who depended upon it to be forgotten. His gaze found Elowen. The person with the least power in my palace saw the truth before I did. Whispers moved through the crowd. Caelan did not look away from her. She did not save this kingdom because she wanted a title. She saved it because something was hurting, and she refused to leave. The mate bond flared between them. Warmth spread through Elowen's chest so suddenly that she lost her breath. Caelan felt it too. His silver eyes softened. Elowen walked toward him. The courtyard waited. She stopped close enough that only he could hear her. I believe you are trying to become a better king. Caelan's hope rose. Elowen touched the burned edge of his sleeve. But I am not ready to forget that you lied to me. His expression changed, but he nodded. I know, and I am still angry about the cabbages. I feared that. Her mouth curved. This is not forgiveness. No, not yet. Caelan lowered his head toward hers. Then I will wait. Before Elowen could answer, a messenger rushed into the courtyard, carrying a sealed council order. Ronan broke it open. His face became grim. The broken fang clause has been invoked. Above the fortress, the council bells began to ring. By sunset, Caelan would have to prove he still controlled his wolf, or Thornmere would crown another ruler. The bells rang 13 times. Each strike rolled across Blackthorn Keep like a warning carved into stone. Elowen sat on the edge of a healer's table while May wrapped her injured leg. Across the room, Caelan stood beside the window, reading the council order for the third time. You are wearing a path into the floor, Elowen said. I am standing still. You are standing angrily. Caelan looked at her. She lifted one shoulder. It has a different shape. Ronan entered carrying a covered silver tray. The council has ordered the king to eat before the hearing. Caelan's eyes narrowed. From whose kitchen? The royal one. No. Ronan removed the lid. Roasted venison rested beside potatoes and cabbage. Elowen stared at the vegetables. Caelan stared at Ronan. Ronan raised both hands. I did not choose the menu. Elowen leaned closer and smelled the food. Beneath the roasted meat, she caught something bitter. Moonbane. Her expression changed. Do not touch it. Caelan was beside her immediately. You smell poison? She nodded. The cabbage is clean. The meat is not. Caelan looked almost personally betrayed by the arrangement. Elowen pointed toward the cabbage. Your safest meal has finally arrived. I would rather risk the poison. You are about to prove your self-control before the entire kingdom. I am aware. Then begin with lunch. Ronan turned away, but not before Elowen saw him smile. Caelan picked up one cabbage leaf. He looked at it with the grim acceptance of a warrior facing execution. Elowen softened. You do not truly have to eat it. He placed the leaf in his mouth. Her smile returned. That was enough. Caelan swallowed. Terrible. You looked very brave. I have survived worse. Name one thing. He looked toward the door. The first 11 cabbages. By sunset, the council hall was filled. Nobles crowded the balconies. Soldiers lined the black stone walls. The surviving sentinel wolves waited behind iron gates at the far end of the chamber. Octavia stood beside the council elders. She had changed into white. The color made Elowen think of clean snow covering a grave. Caelan entered without a crown. Elowen walked beside Ronan, carrying Althea's journal beneath her coat. Whispers followed them. The enchanted king. The ambitious Omega. The weak Alpha who obeyed a gardener. Octavia raised one hand. Under the broken fang clause, the king must release his wolf before the council. Caelan stepped into the center of the hall. And what must the council prove? That your beast remains under your command. A faint smile touched Octavia's mouth. And that no mate controls you in its place. Caelan looked toward Elowen. She could feel his anger through the bond, but beneath it lay something colder. Pain. Moonbane still remained in his blood. Another shift could make the wolf unstable. Octavia knew that. That was why she had arranged the trial now. Caelan removed his coat. The shift moved through him quickly. Bones changed. Black fur spread across broad shoulders. A moment later, the enormous royal wolf stood in the center of the hall. Several nobles stepped backward. The sentinel wolves began whining behind their gates. Caelan's breathing deepened. His silver eyes remained fixed on Octavia. An elder lifted a ceremonial blade. Alpha King, kneel. Caelan did not move. The hall became silent. Elowen felt a sharp wave of confusion through the bond. Something was wrong, The elder repeated the order. Kneel. Caelan's claws scraped against the stone. A low growl formed in his chest. Octavia's smile grew. There. You see it. Elowen smelled moonbane again. Not from Caelan. From the smoke curling out of the ceremonial braziers. They poisoned the fire, she said. Ronan drew his sword. Octavia stepped backward. Remove her. 2 guards seized Elowen's arms. Caelan's growl became a roar. The windows shook. The guards released her and reached for their weapons. Caelan lunged forward. Everyone believed he was attacking. Elowen did not run. She stepped into his path. Caelan. The wolf stopped inches from her. His body trembled violently. Foam gathered near his teeth. Moonbane burned through his blood, turning pain into rage. Elowen lifted one hand. You know me. Behind her, Octavia spoke loudly. Command him, Omega. Show them what you have done. Elowen ignored her. She did not order Caelan to kneel. She did not touch him. She simply waited. The same way she had waited beside the apple. You do not have to prove anything to me, she whispered. Caelan's breathing slowed slightly. You are not a monster. His eyes remained wild. Elowen's voice softened. You are only frightened, Chubby. A stunned silence crossed the hall. Even poisoned, Caelan looked offended. His ears moved backward. Elowen almost smiled. There you are. Slowly, the great wolf lowered his head. Then, he knelt before her. Not because she commanded him. Because he chose to trust her. Behind the iron gates, the sentinel wolves began to howl. One guard opened the first gate. The wolves poured into the hall. They passed the council, past the nobles, past Octavia, then formed a protective circle around Elowen and their kneeling king. Octavia's face went pale. Ronan lifted Althea's journal. The late Luna named her murderer. Before he could read the final entry, every torch in the council hall went dark. A blade flashed in the shadows. Someone seized Elowen from behind. Cold metal pressed against her throat. Do not move, Captain Jarek whispered. He had escaped his guards through a passage beneath the council chamber. Elowen's breath caught. Across the darkness, Caelan's growl deepened. Jarek dragged her toward the side door. One step, and she bleeds. The sentinel wolf snarled, but remained in place. Caelan rose slowly. Moonbane still clouded his eyes. Every instinct inside him demanded that he tear Jarek apart. Elowen felt the rage through their bond. She also felt his fear. Caelan, she said softly. Jarek tightened his arm around her. Silence. Elowen winced but kept her eyes on the wolf. Do not let him choose for you. Jarek laughed. He is an animal. No, she whispered. He is a king. The words reached Caelan through the poison. He stopped moving. Jarek backed toward the door. Octavia remained near the council platform, protected by 2 loyal elders. Her expression had changed from confidence to calculation. If Jarek escaped with Elowen, Octavia could claim the Omega had fled with her accomplice. If Elowen died, the only person who could connect the poisoned vegetables to the supply records would be silenced. Elowen looked toward the braziers. The moonbane smoke had grown thicker near the floor. Toby stood behind a pillar, small enough that Jarek had not noticed him. Elowen moved her eyes toward the nearest water lever. The boy followed her gaze. Then he understood. Toby crawled beneath the council bench. Jarek dragged Elowen another step. You should have stayed in the garden, he said. You should not have struck Toby. Jarek's face tightened. Elowen drove her heel down onto his foot. He cursed. At the same moment, Toby pulled the emergency lever. Water poured from the ceiling channels, flooding the braziers. Steam filled the chamber. The moonbane smoke vanished beneath the rush of clean water. Jarek's blade slipped against Elowen's wet collar. Caelan moved. He crossed the chamber in one black blur. His shoulder struck Jarek and threw him against the wall. The knife spun across the floor. Elowen fell to her knees. Jarek reached for a hidden dagger. Caelan's paw landed on his chest. The captain froze beneath the same jaws that had spared him once before. This time, Elowen did not ask Caelan to move immediately. She crawled closer and looked at Jarek. Tell them who ordered Althea's poison. Jarek laughed breathlessly. You think confession will save me? No. Elowen's voice remained calm. But the truth may save your wife and son from sharing your punishment. His face changed. Octavia's head snapped toward him. Do not listen to her. Jarek looked across the chamber. For 10 years, he had followed Octavia because she promised his family wealth, land, and safety. Now her eyes held only warning. He understood at last that she would sacrifice him as easily as she had sacrificed every servant, healer, and guard before him. She ordered it, he whispered. The council fell silent. Octavia's voice sharpened. He is a traitor attempting to save himself. Jarek looked directly at Caelan. 4 years ago, Lady Octavia ordered Chief Healer Varen to add Moonbane to Luna Althea's winter tonic. She told us the Luna plan to expose the missing supplies. Espes. Ronan opened Althea's journal. Jarek continued. The royal meat was sold to the southern packs. Spoiled feed replaced it. The king was poisoned slowly, so the council would believe his wolf had become unstable. Octavia stepped backward. One of her loyal elders moved toward the side door. The sentinel wolves blocked him. Ronan read Althea's final entry aloud. Her words filled the chamber. She had named Octavia, named Varen, named the hidden shipments, named the wax seals. The evidence no longer depended on Elowen's word. It existed in ledgers, payments, poison, testimony, and the handwriting of a murdered Luna. Octavia looked toward the nobles who had once supported her. None met her eyes. You needed me, she said to Caelan. After Althea died, you could barely enter this hall. I held the kingdom together. Caelan shifted back into human form. Water ran from his dark hair and blood marked his shoulder, but his voice remained steady. You held it by the throat. I prevented weakness. You created it. Octavia's control finally broke. You would place this kingdom in the hands of a garden, Omega? Caelan looked toward Elowen. She stood slowly, one hand touching the shallow cut near her throat. No, he said, I will place the kingdom back into the hands of its people. Octavia reached beneath her sleeve. Ronan saw the movement. Down. She threw a black glass capsule toward the central fire. If it broke in the flames, concentrated moonbane would fill the hall. Elowen reacted first. She caught the silver serving tray from the council table and struck the capsule in midair. It changed direction, hit the wet floor, and rolled harmlessly into a puddle. Everyone stared at her. Elowen stared at the tray in her hands. That usually happens to me with baskets. Ronan laughed once, more from shock than humor. Even Caelan's mouth moved. Octavia turned to run. The smallest sentinel wolf stepped into her path. Weeks earlier, it had rested its poisoned head across Elowen's knee. Now it bared its teeth at the woman who had ordered its death. Octavia stopped. The royal guards approached. This time, none waited for her command. They took her weapons, removed the High Steward's seal, and placed iron restraints around her wrists. Caelan looked toward Jarek. Take them both to separate cells. Chief Healer Varen is to be arrested before sunrise. Octavia lifted her chin as guards led her away. You will regret trusting people beneath you. Caelan's answer was quiet. There should never have been anyone beneath me. No one spoke after that. The words traveled through the hall, settling over servants, soldiers, nobles, and elders alike. For generations, Thornmere had believed power flowed downward from the throne. That night, its king admitted that a throne survived only because ordinary people chose to carry the weight. The trials lasted 12 days. Chief Healer Varen confessed after Ronan presented the payments hidden inside his private chambers. He admitted that he had known Moonbane was killing Althea. He had obeyed Octavia because she threatened his children and promised him a place on the Regency Council. His fear explained his actions. It did not excuse them. Captain Jarek gave a complete account of the supply thefts, the forged ledgers, the poisoned kennels, and the order to burn the Glass Moon Garden. His cooperation spared his family from punishment, but he was sentenced to life in the northern fortress. Octavia Rook faced the full court. She was stripped of her title, lands, and property. Her fortune was divided among the villages that had lost winter food, the families of servants she had threatened, and the restoration of the royal kennels. She was sentenced to spend the rest of her life at Iron Pine Fortress, where no clerk could alter her records and no frightened worker could be silenced by her name. Several council elders lost their seats. The Broken Fang Clause was rewritten, so it could never again be invoked by the same council members who stood to gain from removing a king. Royal supply records became public. Servants gained the right to report abuse directly to the Crown Tribunal. No child could be punished physically by a captain, steward, or noble. The royal infirmary opened its doors to low-born workers, and Glass Moon Garden was rebuilt. Caelan did not order the broken stones hidden. The blackened section of the eastern wall remained visible as a reminder. A place could be restored without pretending it had never burned. Elowen understood that better than most. When the trials ended, she left the royal chambers and returned to Briar Row. The decision shocked the court. Some believed she was trying to increase her value by making the king pursue her. Others said no Omega, in her right mind, would walk away from a royal mate. Elowen ignored them. She did not leave because she felt nothing. She left because she felt too much. Caelan had protected her, trusted her, returned through fire for her. But he had also watched her in secret and allowed her to offer him a heart she did not know belonged to a king. Elowen could forgive him. She would not pretend the hurt had disappeared simply because the truth was romantic. She needed to choose him with clear eyes. Not because of a bond, not because a kingdom expected her to become Luna, not because leaving would disappoint anyone. On her first night back in the small workers' quarter, Elowen lay awake, listening to the winter wind. The room felt colder than before. No enormous wolf rested outside her door. No silver eyes watched her argue with a blanket. No offended ears appeared when she mentioned Cabbage. She missed him. That did not mean returning immediately was right. Pain did not always ask a person to fight harder. At times, it asked them to step away long enough to hear their own voice again. Caelan did not order her back. That was the first proof that he had listened. He sent no guards, no royal summons, no public declaration of ownership. 3 days passed. On the 4th morning, Elowen found a pair of warm leather gloves outside her door. No note. She knew who had chosen them. They fit perfectly. The next day, a carpenter arrived to repair the broken window at Briar Row. He claimed the request came from the royal building office. Elowen knew better. On the 6th morning, May brought Elowen a sealed basket from the palace kitchen. Inside waited warm bread, dried venison, 2 apples, and 1 cabbage. A small note rested beneath it. The cabbage was not my decision. Elowen smiled. She wrote beneath the sentence, "Coward." The basket returned to the palace. The next morning, it came back. I ate 1 leaf. Elowen wrote, "Witnesses?" The response arrived before noon. "Ronan." Elowen dipped her pen again. "Ronan lies for you professionally." The final note arrived that evening. He refused to lie about the cabbage. Elowen laughed alone in her little room. The sound made the space feel less empty. Caelan visited on the 7th night. He came without guards, crown, or ceremonial cloak. Snow rested on his shoulders when Elowen opened the door. For a moment, neither spoke. Then, she noticed the basket in his hand. "What is that?" "Dinner. You brought it yourself?" "I was advised that arriving with soldiers might appear excessive." "Who gave you that brilliant advice?" "Everyone." Elowen stepped aside. Caelan entered carefully, as though the small room were more intimidating than a battlefield. His shoulders nearly filled the doorway. Elowen looked at the only 2 chairs. One was piled with folded laundry. The other had a weak leg. "You may sit on the bed." Caelan looked toward it. "It is very small." "You were willing to sleep behind a broken fountain." "I was investigating." "With lettuce." He sat. The bed creaked beneath him. Elowen placed the basket on the table. Inside was roasted venison, potatoes, and a bowl of cabbage. She looked at him. Caelan frowned. "Ronan packed it." "Of course." They ate in the quiet room. Caelan touched none of the cabbage. Elowen did not force him. Halfway through the meal, he looked at her worn curtains and the repaired cracks in the walls. "You lived here while my palace threw away enough food to feed this entire street." "Yes." "I did not know." "That was part of the problem." Caelan accepted the words without defending himself. "I cannot change what I failed to see," he said. "I can change how I look from now on." Elowen rested her hands around her warm cup. "I did not leave to punish you. I know. I needed to remember that I had a choice." "You do." "The bond does not decide for me." "No." "The council does not decide for me." "No." "And you do not decide for me." Caelan looked directly into her eyes. "No." The certainty in his voice loosened the last knot inside her chest. Elowen moved to sit beside him. The bed protested again. Caelan glanced downward. "It dislikes me. It has excellent judgment." His mouth softened. Elowen placed her hand over his. I am still angry. I know. I may remain angry for a while. I have survived 12 cabbages. You buried most of them. Survival often requires strategy. She laughed quietly. Caelan turned his hand beneath hers and laced their fingers together. I missed you, he admitted. Elowen looked toward the fire. How much? Enough to consider eating the cabbage. She looked back at him. That serious? Very. Her smile became softer. I miss Chubby. Caelan's eyes narrowed. And the king, she added. After the wolf? The wolf accepted affection more easily. The wolf was being manipulated with apples. The king is being manipulated with venison. Caelan moved closer. And is it working? Elowen's breath slowed. A little. He did not kiss her. Not yet. He rested his forehead against hers and waited. The choice remained hers. Elowen closed the final distance. Their first kiss was quiet. No council watched. No bells rang. No ancient bond commanded it. It was simply two people choosing each other in a small room, while winter pressed against the window. When they separated, Caelan kept his forehead near hers. Does this mean you are returning to the palace? No. His expression fell slightly. I am returning to the garden. Hope returned. It needs a keeper. It does. And the kingdom needs someone who understands that vegetables have seasons. Apparently. Elowen smiled. You may visit. How often? When you have a reason. Caelan considered this. I am the king. I can create reasons. I suspected that might become a problem. Spring arrived slowly in Thornmere. Snow melted from the restored glass roof. Lavender returned beside the fountain. Children once again learned to plant herbs in the beds Althea had created. Glass Moon Garden became a free infirmary and sanctuary for injured wolves. Elowen accepted the title of keeper, but refused rooms in the royal wing. She chose a small house beside the garden instead. Caelan visited every morning. At first, he claimed he was inspecting repairs. Then, he claimed the eastern walls required attention. On the fourth day, he stood beside a bed of dormant onions for nearly 10 minutes before Ronan asked whether the onions had confessed to treason. Caelan ignored him. Elowen worked nearby with Thomas Reed, the young gardener who had helped save the ledgers during the fire. Thomas was kind, strong, and far too comfortable making her laugh. Caelan watched him place a hand near hers to guide a wooden frame. The mate bond tightened. Ronan followed the king's gaze. Interesting onions. Be quiet. Thomas appears helpful. Caelan looked at him. Ronan raised both hands. I said helpful. That evening, Elowen found Caelan in wolf form beside the restored fountain. A basket of berries sat near her arm. Thomas gave me these. Caelan placed one paw on the basket. Elowen tried to pull it away. He did not move. Those are mine. His paw remained. You have venison. Caelan pushed the venison aside and kept the berries. Elowen stared. Are you jealous of Thomas? The Alpha King looked toward the glass roof. You are. He yawned. Elowen sat beside him. This is very immature. Caelan rested his enormous head across her lap, trapping her beneath its weight. She laughed. You cannot solve every disagreement by lying on me. He closed his eyes. You are emotionally occupying me. Caelan decided that sounded acceptable. His jealousy did not prevent him from promoting Thomas to deputy keeper several weeks later. The young gardener had a widowed mother and 3 younger sisters. Caelan disliked him for making Elowen laugh. He respected him for deserving to. That contradiction annoyed him. Elowen experienced jealousy of her own when Lady Seraphine Vale arrived for a council meeting. Seraphine was graceful, intelligent, and born to one of the wealthiest families in Thornmere. Before Elowen appeared, several elders had expected Caelan to choose Seraphine as his next Luna. During a reception, Elowen delivered fresh rosemary to the royal kitchens. She saw Seraphine standing beside Caelan near the great fire. The noblewoman touched his sleeve while speaking. Caelan stepped away politely. Elowen did not see that part. She had already turned. That evening, she brought Caelan 2 cabbages without speaking. He smelled irritation before she reached the fountain. He nudged her hand. I am fine. He nudged her again. The king may speak with anyone he wishes. Caelan's ears lifted. Elowen pulled leaves from a cabbage with unnecessary force. It makes no difference to me. Caelan moved closer. Lady Seraphine is very beautiful. He huffed. Elowen looked at him. You disagree? Caelan lowered his head onto her shoulder. She is elegant. He pressed closer. And intelligent. A low growl vibrated against Elowen's coat. She blinked. Are you jealous of Lady Seraphine? Caelan immediately stopped growling. Elowen smiled slowly. You are. He moved away. You cannot dislike everyone who stands near me. Caelan looked over his shoulder. You dislike Thomas. You dislike the laundry boy. You dislike the orange cat. The orange cat had attacked his tail. That grievance was justified. Elowen touched his ear. Perhaps I should find you a nice female wolf. Caelan turned so quickly that his shoulder knocked over 3 cabbages hidden behind the fountain. They rolled across the floor. One struck another. A small green mountain emerged from behind the restored wall. Elowen stared. Caelan stood among 17 uneaten cabbages. You fraud. He stepped backward. You buried them again? He moved toward the door. Chubby. He continued walking. Come back here. Caelan broke into a run. Elowen chased him through the garden while laughing, one cabbage tucked beneath her arm. The king of Thornmere fled across the spring grass from a small Omega gardener carrying a vegetable. 2 guards witnessed the event from the eastern wall. Neither ever found the courage to describe it accurately. Months passed before Caelan asked Elowen to become his Luna. He did not ask inside the throne room. He did not invite the council. He found her in the glass moon garden at sunrise, kneeling beside the first spring cabbage. Caelan stopped several feet away. The sight of the vegetable awakened old suffering. Elowen looked up. You seem concerned. I have learned not to trust them. This one is harmless. That is how they begin. She stood and brushed soil from her skirt. Caelan approached. He carried no crown, only a small silver ring engraved with vines and a wolf beneath the moon. I do not need a Luna to strengthen my claim, he said. I do not need a mate to obey me. Elowen's expression softened. I need someone who will tell me when I am wrong. That happens often. I am aware. Are you? Caelan gave her a patient look. Elowen smiled. He took her hand. I love you when you are gentle. I love you when you are stubborn. I love you when you are angry with me. That last one is fortunate. I love the way you see what others overlook. His thumb moved across her fingers. And I have eaten more vegetables for you than any man should be required to survive. Elowen laughed through gathering tears. That was your decision. It was an act of devotion. It was a lie. A devoted lie. She shook her head. Caelan lowered himself onto one knee. The Iron Wolf of Thornmere, feared by armies and obeyed by 12 packs, knelt in the soil before the Omega, who once believed him to be a harmless, overweight herbivore. Elowen Hale, will you stand beside me? She looked at the ring. Then at him. Will I still be allowed to disagree with you? I expect it. Will I keep the garden? It belongs to you. Will you eat cabbage? Caelan's expression became solemn. Let us not damage a beautiful moment. Elowen laughed and touched his face. Yes. Caelan stood. He slid the ring onto her finger. Then, he kissed her. The kiss was slow, warm, and filled with everything they had waited to say. Elowen's hands rested against his chest. Caelan held her as though strength had finally learned how to become gentle. When they separated, she looked toward the cabbage beside them. I prepared a celebration meal. Caelan became suspicious. Elowen lifted the cabbage. His eyes narrowed. She pulled back the outer leaves. Inside waited slices of roasted venison wrapped in herbs. Caelan stared at it. Elowen smiled. I know what you actually like now. He took the meat. You hid it inside a cabbage? I thought you would appreciate the symbolism. Caelan bit into the venison. Elowen watched expectantly. Well, it is perfect. The cabbage kept it moist. Caelan stopped chewing. She laughed and ran. He shifted into his wolf form and chased her through the garden. Elowen reached the fountain before he caught her. The great black wolf lowered his head and gently pushed her into the spring grass. She wrapped both arms around his neck. My terrifying herbivore. Caelan huffed against her hair. You still love the name. He rested one enormous paw beside her. You do. His silver eyes softened. Elowen kissed the white mark beneath his chin. Around them, the restored garden filled with children's laughter, clean water, and the smell of herbs rising beneath the morning sun. A place once closed by grief had become the warmest place in the kingdom. The Alpha King had spent years believing strength meant never allowing anyone to see his hunger, his loneliness, or his pain. An overlooked Omega taught him otherwise. She did not win him with power. She did not demand his trust. She gave him patience, warmth, and far more cabbage than any wolf should have been expected to endure. Caelan learned that love was not someone kneeling because he wore a crown. Love was an Omega laughing as she pulled leaves from his fur. It was warm gloves left without explanation, a head resting quietly across a lap. Jealous looks neither person admitted. Meals remembered. Absences felt. Truth offered even when it hurt. A real king was not made by the number of lives he could command. He was made by the lives that felt safe enough to tell him he was being ridiculous. And perhaps that is where Elowen and Caelan's story should grow quiet. Are you still here with me? Then you probably understand that this was never only a story about a stubborn wolf and far too much cabbage. It was about betrayal arriving from people who were trusted. It was about being misunderstood, blamed, and spoken about as though your heart did not belong to you. Elowen felt that pain, but she did not beg anyone to see her value. She stepped away when staying would have cost her dignity. She gave herself enough silence to choose again not from fear, pressure, or loneliness, but from self-respect. That is a quiet kind of strength. You cannot always control who lies about you, disappoints you, or fails to recognize what you gave them. You can control whether their behavior teaches you to abandon yourself. Caelan also learned that love cannot be commanded. It must be made safe, patient, and honest. And occasionally, it may require eating one heroic bite of cabbage. If this story stayed with you, comment Dignity below. You can also gently like, share, and subscribe so we can meet again in the next story.